Welcome to a bit of a cloudy, overcast day here in East Haven County, where we've spent the past couple of episodes building a ton of new housing, much of that being affordable, as well as incentivizing further business development through company tax cuts. As a result of this effort, not only is homelessness now almost a non-issue, unemployment levels are incredibly low as lots of local companies have expanded their operations and seen record profits. With these structural issues fixed for now, we can finally dive into the development of the original Harbour of Fort John. And if you enjoy my content, you can really help me out by engaging with this video through liking and commenting. Thank you. So before we dive into the development of the Old Harbour, we're gonna do a bit of a service investment as well as a few cool small detailing tasks beforehand. As you can probably see, we're gonna focus our service investment on the death care situation because it's looking pretty poor currently. If we check the statistics, it's really a combination of two things. So the crematorium availability is pretty poor. We definitely need a new crematorium with some decent capacity. And while the cemetery availability doesn't look as bad, it's not like it's at full capacity. The main issue here is that the biggest cemetery in the county, which is this one, the Fort John Central Cemetery, is effectively full. It's actually over capacity, which is a little morbid. But as a result, none of the 6 hearses are in use because obviously this one barely functions anymore. Now I'm slightly annoyed that you can't just click a button and kind of clear out the facility, since it does give a facility full notification. But as you guys pointed out, in many countries, graves will actually be repurposed if the descendants doesn't pay for the upkeep fee for a number of years. So I think a compromise would be to just demolish this building and rebuild it in the very same place. And then hopefully with the addition of a crematorium, it's gonna take a little while for this to fill out again. So I'm just gonna replace it and give it the very same name. I've removed some of the trees as well as the grass surface that comes with the asset so that it looks a little better integrated with like the general aesthetics of the hill here. And then I'll just be adding my own preferred trees in as well, just to make sure that there is also a bit of a recreational area here with some pathways. As a start, it's only going to serve the Fort John greater area, as this is where the current death care situation seems to be the worst basically. And each time I select these districts, I have to remember that I have a couple of like sub-districts, such as Little Sicily here, that needs to be also selected, otherwise I don't think they'll be covered by the service at least. And then to finish off this little bit of investment, we're gonna place a crematorium down here, I think. I already have a very old looking school here, and this is one of the older parts of the city, with Battery Hill obviously being one of the oldest row house districts in the entire county. So I thought it fitting to place the crematorium here, not due to its function, but more due to its aesthetics. I think it's going to be a pretty decent fit with how it's looking. It's not a perfect fit with the space down here, so I'm going to cheat, I think, meaning that not only am I going to freeform place it like this, but I might also just tailor the road network to accommodate the building and not the other way around, which is pretty realistic when you think about it anyways. So and then, as I do so often, I'm going to make sure that the parking lot doesn't look all wonky. So I'm going to add an additional node to this small lane here, and then we'll upgrade with a key alongside this side. Just like that. And then I think we can remove this. Actually, we probably need to move a bit further up, but since we don't have anything zoned or placed alongside this, then that works out pretty well. Once again, using the Better Bulldozer mod to just get rid of the trees that are a part of the building, so that I can just place a few random big oaks instead, which is the general theme I have in this area anyway, so it's going to look better fit, just like the cemetery. I don't have room for the additional hearse garage, but I can add the other 2 extensions, which is going to make it a little more efficient. Oh, look how happy people are. And then we can make sure to select the same specific operating districts, and hopefully this is going to alleviate this small crisis we're currently having. The hearses are making their way out onto the city streets, and I should hope this should be enough to just fix this issue. I think this is a bit of a dev wave as well, so it's not like a constant issue, but this was probably a worthwhile investment anyways. Now for the next little task, it's going to be less functional and more about improving a current tourist destination and landmark here in Fort John. And that's going to be the actual fort here on top of Battery Hill. Because the way I've created these walls with the alleys is, I mean, it works all right, but I think there's a better approach to just doing this. It's going to look a little odd at first, so just stay with me here. I'm going to use Move It, and I'm going to filter for nodes and segments specifically. I think I actually just need the nodes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all the nodes here, and then we're going to hit Control H to lower these to an entirely different level. And then we're going to try something a little different in creating these walls. So I think I have everything selected. I'll hit Control H and lower to this node's height level. Just like that. As you guys can see, it kind of lowers everything quite a bit. And then I think I'm going to lower it additionally by just holding down Shift and moving down to at least this level right here. All right, we'll see if this works. Then I'm gonna grab the retaining wall. So instead of having the inner side being a keyed off wall, we're gonna add a retaining wall instead. And then it's probably gonna look a little funky at the very start here, but with a bit of terraforming, I'm confident it's gonna look better. I haven't, this was a spontaneous idea, so so we'll see. But I've seen people do this, I think on Instagram or on the City Skylines subreddit, and I'm not really sure how it's going to work in our specific case, but it did look a little better from the way I saw it at least. So I currently looks odd, but this is where the terraforming comes into place, I think. We're going to right click here at the level of the buildings that we have at this square within the fort. Then we're gonna increase the brush strength to 100, and the size probably just needs to be 10, because I just want to specifically lower everything by the walls here, but not beyond them. We need a bit of a contrast, of course, as this was originally built on a hill overlooking much of the inner bay here. For obvious defensive reasons, it gives it's a pretty good location for spotting potential enemy ships or troop movements, and then bombarding them, of course. I would love for some cannon props. That would be a very, very cool additional feature out here, but I guess this will do for now. Was a bit of a gamble, but I really like it. I think it looks a lot better than before. It's still not perfect. We gotta get creative with the tools we have, but I really enjoy that change. I do think that looks a lot better, honestly. For one final addition here, one of you guys suggested that I look into some of the European themed assets now that we've got those available for some of the buildings placed in here, and I think that's a wonderful idea. So I'm just gonna remove some of these at least, and then we're gonna see if we can find something from, I think one of these commercial pubs here from the UK pack might be a good idea. So we're just gonna filter for that and then see if I can find some of the low density stuff. So we're in Find It, grabbing commercial buildings. We'll filter for signature buildings and see what we can find. This one, I think, the Church Inn, I just need to decide on whether I want one of the more expanded versions, because if I do that, I will obviously have to remove quite a bit of stuff out the back to actually make that look any good. So I think I'm gonna pause the game And then we're gonna try placing this one, and then we'll delete these one, and then we'll place maybe 2 versions of the small in. And then obviously we are gonna need a bit of bulldozer work here just to make that look a little better tied in. So we really need to bulldoze some stuff here. The parking lots, this fencing, or sorry, this wall structure. I guess we can keep these, you know. And I don't really mind if there are like actual pubs up here. It could look like a tourist information center or something like that. I think that's perfectly fine. So I'm not even gonna demolish anything else. Back here, we're probably just gonna get rid of these fences, as I don't really think they fit all too well. And then potentially I am just going to grab the surface tool here and just kind of bring this back a little bit. Just something like this. I think that's gonna look, oops, like that. That's probably gonna fit it a little better. Then there's the color scheme. So I went with this traditional red brick one beforehand, because this is the color scheme that more or less dominates the old Battery Hill neighborhood. So I think I might go for the same here. We'll just, can we copy paste it? I'm gonna copy paste it from this barn, I think. Or should I just keep these white for a bit of contrast? Looks like it's almost like in limestone or something. If you've got a strong opinion on this matter, you might not care. Let me know in the comments. I think I'm gonna keep it white for now, just for that added contrast. And then we'll see, we can always change it. Okay, so one small detailing task more, and then I promise we're gonna get started with the Old Harbour. And this one is a little thing that you guys have been suggesting a ton of times, or at least several of you have suggested this throughout many of the videos here in Fort John. And that is to add a bit of graffiti to some of these old bridge pillars. So if you remember, this is a bit of legacy from the old bridge that used to cross here before the whole thing was revamped as a part of the federal highway program, where the Massachusetts Route 28 was expanded down throughout East Haven County, and we now have a proper interstate cutting through. Just look at all the activity here. I mean, I didn't even plan for this. It's just so nice to really see your cities come full alive when you start expanding. Anyways, we'll open, let's see, what are we opening? We are opening the extra assets menu and then jumping into decals and graffiti decals. Now, it's not all types of graffiti decals that is actually placeable on something like this. We do have to select the snap to the surface of an object. And while it's obviously trying to snap, as you guys can see, then it's not actually gonna show. Not really sure why. I guess not all graffiti decals are created equally, because if I grab this scribble one, we can actually add these. And I think we're just gonna go ham. There's not gonna be any like organized thing out here. People have just been scribbling weird stuff, and then don't worry, we're also going to add like some proper graffiti stuff to it. But it's Skype, I was here, still your kids. This one is almost not safe for work. We're gonna make that a little less visible, I think. But these are just great. I mean, just having the decals in game, even though we don't have proper custom assets or proper prefabs, at least, it just means so much. Now these ones, as I get down to this set here from I18n, we can actually get these placed, which is really cool. So now it's really gonna take shape. Some of the dudes out here, or gals, that put in a bit more effort to try and tag this up. But yeah, I mean, it's all been it's all a little messy throughout all the years. So something like that. We might have a few people that have ventured on to the side here. We'll need that scribble as well, just to make everything look a little chaotic. And then maybe just a bit over here on the back side. We'll add this cool sailor emoji here, and I think that's gonna be it. And once again, props to you guys. Awesome suggestion all around. I know this one was suggested months ago and has been suggested multiple times, but I remember, don't worry, don't worry. So whether you're part of the regular crew here on the channel or you're all new, and in that case you're of course very welcome, I should probably provide a bit of context for the Old Harbour we'll be building in here right next to downtown, and maybe kind of stretching around the shorelines here of Battery Hill. So you might have noticed we have a pretty sprawling port of Fort John on the opposite end of downtown. This is a much more recent development. I think the first foundations here with the rail tracks was laid around 100 years ago. And it's generally just a better location for massive container ships and general cargo traffic. It's a very deep, as you guys can see, a very deep natural harbor, and it still has very easy access to the Atlantic Ocean. And it's still in the cover of the Cape Rose Island, so when the Atlantic Ocean decides to throw a fit and get all storm and windy, this area here is relatively calm. The original settlers of Fort John, though, didn't really have big container ships in mind, so they found this bay here to be the best suitable location for a small harbor way back then in the 1600s. So this is actually where the original harbor was laid out and where the, downtown started to grow from. And that means it's our job to achieve a realistic look here, where we probably have some remnants of old industry down here, but much of it has been developed into recreational spaces and maybe modern developments for hipsters. Whatever the case, we obviously need to start out with a bit of terraforming, and I think I'm gonna buy this tile. It's not much use we're getting from it currently, but we would need to buy it in the future anyways as we start developing these shorelines. So let's just get that out of the way. As for the terraforming, I need to find the proper height here. So this is the general shoreline. So I think if we just go for, let's just go for 867, because we're not seeing any fluctuations in the water levels here on the map. I've disabled that. And I'm just gonna be a little rough here and just take a lot of space. Now this doesn't represent the actual extent of the harbor, but when I lay down the roads and start adding some quay walls, we'll of course terraform in between these quay walls to get them, looking like actual piers and docks and stuff. So I rather just terraform a little too much to start off with, and then it's all gonna look all right when we actually decide on the extent of the harbor. So I always find it a little tricky to map out the road layout that will ultimately turn into piers when we add the quay walls and do back the terraforming. So I figured we'd grab a bit of real life inspiration, and what better place to start at least than in Boston, which is kind of the loose inspiration for parts of Fort John. Now we have the Boston downtown right here, and I'm gonna assume that some of these port areas are more recent additions. And you can see that they have been specifically built to accommodate larger ships. And then I assume, without actually knowing, that if we move closer to Boston downtown, then some of the small, tighter piers we see in here that has now obviously been redeveloped into residential and commercial space and expensive burger bars probably used to have an industrial purpose. And something we see here that is quite obvious is that generally the scale here is just smaller. So while they did need to accommodate boats to, accommodate international trade and shipping routes, the ships were just smaller, they were more tightly packed, and that also affected how the harbor areas were originally laid out. And if we move beyond the scope of just the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, move a little north to have a look at Portland, we've got an older port in here. This area is actually called Old Port. I didn't plan for this, but perfect timing, I guess. And we do kind of see the same thing. Now, interestingly, all of this hasn't been gentrified and redeveloped into cool spaces just yet. So there's still quite a bit of what looks like smaller scale industry. We've got a redevelopment here, obviously, on what was most likely an industrial pier beforehand. But it's kind of the same theme. The actual inlets here in between the piers, the spaces are quite small. They're originally built to just accommodate smaller ship sizes, and they have this kind of long, narrow look. And I think we can take inspiration from both of these examples and transplant them into Fort John. I'm gonna start with adding a breakwater, and I might change my mind and remove this a little later, because part of what made this area so desirable for the first settlers here was the fact that it's in such good coverage of the crazy waters of the Atlantic, so the breakwater might just be a bit overkill. Anyways, for mapping out the actual dockyards, I want to use the narrowest road possible, because I kind of like that look a little bit more. If you're just playing vanilla and want to keep it vanilla, you might as well use the regular alley here. You can get a slightly more narrow and tighter look by using the new one-way alley that's available in the vanilla game, because if you add a key to it, I think this one looks a little less wide. It probably is also. So I think visually I'd probably go for this version. In my case, I am using the road builder mod, so I've just created on this bad boy here, let's see, the one-way key. Basically, this is just a one-way alley where I removed the parking on the side, which is a part of the vanilla one-way alley. And as you guys can see, as long as I don't upgrade it to a key, it's gonna have some texture issues, so I only use it for the specific purpose of key walls. But because if I add the key wall, there are no texture issues, and this is about as narrow as it's gonna get. Here is the comparison with the vanilla version, and you have the added benefit of not having any on-street parking here, which you will have here. And I mean, it's all preference. Maybe you actually want that. Anyways, I am going to use my version for the majority of this at least, and I'm gonna disable all the snapping, and we're just gonna draw out some piers. I'm thinking we're gonna have a decently sized marina in here for just regular boat use, and probably a few other marinas throughout the island actually. Really need to get those in place soon. But maybe also just a few smaller marinas as part of the redevelopment some of these industrial quays have seen, or piers rather. And I should place them now, because it's gonna be a lot harder if I wait till until after I terraform and let the water back in, because obviously the water, it kind of increases the complexity of like any changes you want to make. So I am just gonna add in a few random of these small boardwalks here and there for other boats to use. Doesn't have to make a ton of sense, because I can always change it, but I just want to get a bit of it in place before I do the terraforming. I'm gonna upgrade all of these to elevated segments so that I'm ready to bring in the water in just a few minutes and see it all transform and come into action. Because right now it's kind of like an abstract thing, mapping all this out without there being any water to actually kind of showcase the like the full design. Now we have ended up reclaiming a little more land than I had initially planned for. Not that I'm great at planning ahead, of course, but this is prompting me to use a regular 2-lane road actually, just to create an additional road we can connect up this key network to. And I'm gonna try and keep as many of these segments kind of moving straight through this, and then connect up to some of the centerpieces and just upgrade those to regular road segments. So we're just upgrading this segment, for instance, and then I think, let's see, we've got a few more here. So I think I'm actually just gonna make it run sort of parallel to this piece, and we'll just get a regular connection to this intersection. We'll get all this connected up. Need a bit more snapping, it seems. 180 connected, and then we'll need to connect these up, of course. might change some things in this layout, but ultimately I really don't know before I actually do the terraforming and let all the water in. So I think we're just gonna kind of jump the gun and get that done, and then we'll see if we need to do any changes. Well, the final result is certainly quite a bit special. I don't think we can say we leaned too much on any of the two references on Google Maps. We certainly took it in our own direction here, but I kind of like it. It's sufficiently random for it to be interesting. I think the first building I'm gonna place is maybe a bit of a surprise. It's actually an elementary school, and it's the German themed elementary school, but we're not gonna consider it an elementary school or roleplay it as an elementary school. Rather, it's going to be the old customs building that was built here maybe 200 or so years ago. There used to be an even older customs building before that handled all the customs and taxation of different goods when ships would come to the Old Harbour here. So this isn't the original structure. It's the it's from when the city really started to prosper, and the city government decided to build a more beautiful customs building to reflect this. So I think we're just gonna pause for a quick second here, and then I'm just gonna freeform place it, in alignment to many of the piers here. And obviously it requires a bit of a special road network. So let's just go ahead and grab I'm looking for the suburban alley here, I think. And we're gonna freeform this completely. Something like this, and then we'll of course need to connect up here somewhere, so we'll just branch into this. And this is actually the wrong road. I was looking for the my suburban 2-lane road. Man, there it is. I have so much road builder stuff by now. Let's enable snapping so that hopefully I can just upgrade. I can. Perfect. Why not just have an alley branch out from here as well? And we'll once again just go for the freeform, the continuous tool here, make the alley go alongside the side of the building, and maybe connect up here, something like that. And we'll have a road move through here as well. I think we're gonna turn much of this into like a park, like a recreational area. There probably used to be industry, or at least a transitionary zone where you had industrial units and warehouses transitioning to more residential and mixed use stuff back in the old days of the downtown. And this feels like a good opportunity to use one of these cool new roundabouts. We've got a ton with the most recent detailers patch. I think we're maybe just gonna use this one. I wonder if I can actually remove the trees here. I think I prefer to do that just to have it look a little more clear. And then we're just gonna do detailing of our own. So we'll grab this bush here and use the advanced line tool to select the circle mode. And then I hope I don't have any terraforming issues here. Actually, I should clear that up. So we're just gonna make sure that the terraforming edge is a little closer to the actual water here, so none of the bushes cause any issues. And then we'll move in. Once again, we'll grab these. We'll go for the circle tool, as I mentioned. We'll select random rotation. And I have this light in the very center I can use to branch off from, which is really cool. And then we're just gonna reduce the spacing between these to a very, very small size, something like this. And then if I hold down Shift, the selection is still in place, even though I have placed these. And I'm actually able to just click and grab a different bush entirely. Now, oh, there you go, something like this maybe. Yoink, and we'll grab these ones. Or maybe these I need a bit of contrast. We'll just grab these, I think. And the final circle. Actually, I just got a crazy downright insane idea. Something I don't think any of you had expected, and no idea how this is gonna look. But what if one of the key elements as to why this area is a recreational space and was razed to the ground was that there was a massive fire here a couple of hundreds of years ago, and it really took its toll on the downtown area as well, and it led city officials to reconsider this intermix of industrial units and warehouses and the transition to residential, mixed use and commercial space all in the same place, like this transitionary district here. What if that due to the fire, they swore that they would have a buffer zone between the bustling, growing downtown core of Fort John and the Old Harbour that had so much industrial activity, but was also the main issue behind the fire, because the fire started out here and there were tons of materials and other stuff that just made it completely explode and really gain traction. I mean, that's the backstory. Now, the more radical change the city council implemented was that they actually also dug out an actual lake in here, as well as a canal that kind of just swept its way through this entire area and separated the Old Harbour from much of the built-up environment. It even had a bit of an inlet out here so that it was connected to the ocean. So not technically a lake, just a really weird something. Okay, so maybe you're thinking that's a great idea, let's go, let's do something crazy. Or you're face palming. Either way, I'm gonna try it out. You better believe I'm gonna try it out. So first we need to establish the lake in here. So let's just grab a water level that isn't too extreme. It seems like let's just look out here actually. So the ocean is sitting at around 864. So if we just go down to 861 and right click and and we start creating the little quote-unquote lake in here, and then we just reduce the size and we bring this through, and then we'll have this turned into a tiny actually bridge, and it's gonna cut through right here, and this is gonna be turned into a small bridge segment as well, and this is where it obviously connects to the actual ocean. And we'll need to think, should it maybe move through underneath here? That might actually be a better bet. So in front of the actual customs building. Oh yeah, we're gonna make a real mess of things now. We're gonna move the beautiful customs building a bit further back, and then we'll actually draw this out so that it crosses underneath in here. We'll obviously need to turn this and this into a small bridge segment as well, and then it kind of just moves its way alongside Park Street here, which will add a quay wall to, I think. And oh, perfect, there's a bit of water out here as we move out here, but we are really close to like the actual sea, so that's gonna cause some issues if I didn't want any water here, but fortunately I do, so everything's just perfect. Oh man, let's see. So I'll need some very specific bridge segments. So I'm just going to add a couple of additional nodes. Don't want to make the bridges too small. I can always use move it to kind of correct them. But if they're too small, the water physics are just gonna give us a bit of a headache and act all funky and weird. And I don't think we want that. And why don't we just do a direct connection out here to this? We probably should. I mean, that's what the engineers would have done back then, I think. I am going to add an additional node here just to not turn the entire thing into a bridge segment. So let's try. Elevated segment, elevated segment, elevated segment. These two as well. Oh, I don't know how that's gonna work with the roundabout, but actually scratch that. I don't know how any of this is gonna work, so might as well just get it done now. And then we'll see. Yeah, I didn't have this on the bingo card, by the way. This is a crazy idea out of nothing, but oh, it even spawned a pillar here. Yeah, I would say that's slightly overkill. I'm just gonna remove that. Let's see, I probably need to key this off. I need to key this off and all of this as well. Something like that. And this can just be kept as is because we're gonna have some not too harsh banks of this little lake in here, or whatever we might want to call it. All right, so hitting play will open the developer console, go to simulation, water, and let's speed things up a bit. Obviously I need to smoothen out a few things with terraforming, but other than that, I think it looks pretty cool. And I guess, you know, historically, it would also, you know, it would better explain why we have these pretty old, maybe not 200 years old, but at least 130, 40 or 50 years old, beautiful buildings right here. I mean, when this whole thing was established following the quote-unquote Great Fire, then this, you know, the real estate value here was certainly quite high, because let's say you were like a CEO or a manager at one of the factories or the industry here, and you wanted a great view as well. I mean, you could pretty much have everything if you lived here, in theory at least. I'm gonna stick to this, and let's just say that I can't wait to read you guys' comments on what you're feeling about this solution. I think I just know that I don't want too many buildings in here, really. So I kind of like this idea as well, and it just makes things look unique as well. And it really just, yeah, I think it makes this area of Fort John stand out, and I think it's quite a fun story as well. I mean, a massive fire is never fun, but it's certainly a very specific story. And big fires have previously resulted in major changes in big cities throughout the world, so why not Fort John? I guess it also just made it easier for the city to justify this beautiful new customs building that was built after the fire, with the establishment of this quote-unquote buffer zone. Reminding me we should probably add both upgrades to just really make this building stand out. I think we're going to postpone the detailing of this area for now. I might add just a few trees to make it look nicer, but man, if there's ever been a situation where I needed some creative naming suggestions from you guys, it's probably gonna be now, because I'm going to designate this as its own special area. Actually, I'm gonna designate the Old Harbour as well, obviously, so I'm just gonna make the bay here, which is just a geographical feature, a little smaller. And then we're gonna map out the park, I guess it is by now. But yeah, I really need a suggestion for what to name this area, which ties into the story I've created thus far. And if you have any like alterations to the story, then feel free as well. So Thornton Field is for now gonna be Buffer Park, which I don't even think is all that bad given the context of it, but very much open to suggestions. Yeah, let me know in the comments. Next up, I'm just going to make sure I map out the harbor here as well. And I'm gonna be a complete nerd about it and try and follow the specific piers right here, which, yeah, it's probably just gonna make the district name look completely odd and be placed in a weird spot, but we'll see. It's not too bad. Old Harbour, I guess. There goes my creativity. Couldn't help but just add a few quick paths and rename this, because it's actually now a museum dedicated to the rich shipping and trade history here in East Haven County. Let's get some actual buildings placed here in Old Harbour, because that's just going to make the whole thing come together, and I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So first up, I don't want the whole thing to be redeveloped into modern stuff. In fact, I think most of the footprint out here is still going to be some form of industry, or at least workplaces. Specifically, this part of Old Harbour that is closer to the fort and Battery Hill is still going to have quite a few warehouses and maybe a few processing plants for their local fishing industry. And then we're going to place some custom fishing boats as well, which I'm very, very excited about. I grabbed these from Sully's Discord. So we'll get to that in just a second, but over here I think we're gonna have some more modern developments. I am gonna try and see if I can find a few signature buildings that looked apart here, because it would be so cool to have maybe have something that is going to be an aquarium here on this pier, where we do actually have a bit of space to place something. But we're gonna find it and grab just the stuff we need. So we're gonna kick off with industry, and I want to start populating some of the piers specifically. Now, with a bit of lot width and depth filtering, I should be able to find just the stuff I need. So I would like some warehouse units alongside this pier, just as an example. So I'm not gonna specify a specific level, I just want the full selection, and I'm looking for something that looks a little square or like boxy. And we've got these one here, level 5 even, so they will have quite a few workplaces as well, which is perfect. So we're just gonna freeform place these with Anarchy, because otherwise the space out here is just gonna be too tight, and it's gonna be probably gonna be a little too finicky. I'm not too worried about some of them dipping slightly into the ground. I think that I can just normalize their heights with Move It, and that shouldn't really cause much of an issue. Although, as you guys can see, I am kind of tapping into some of the terraforming stuff here. So if I can select these and just bring them back a little bit without causing any issues back here, and then do a little checkup, then hopefully I can kind of just smoothen that out. Oh yeah, I can certainly smoothen that out, no problem at all. In fact, I could even bring them forward. Okay, so it's just that was bad terraforming on my behalf, not the placement of the actual buildings. Let's see if I can find one that kind of sticks out a bit and is angled towards this side over here instead. I can, but it's gonna be a little tricky to place apparently. So I'm just gonna place it like that, and we'll just move it over here with Move It, align it to the height of one of the other buildings. And I want to make this a really tight, old looking space, repurposed into fishing today. And it's not like the warehouses are super old, but obviously they have to kind of, they have to be built to accommodate the tight space as well. We've got a pretty sizable block here between Sterling Lane and Park Street. So we might just be able to be a little more specific, ask for some level 5s, one that is 6 wide and might look like a fishing packing no, that's not gonna work. It's not gonna work either. Actually, we can only go about 5 deep, it seems, or maybe even just 4 deep. Yeah, something like this. Yunk. And then we'll go 5 and 4, and that's a perfect fit almost. We'll move that real close. Go into better Bulldozer, see if we can just get rid of the fences back here at the very least. There we go. Another row of warehouses ready to get placed right here. Once again, just stitching them together as good as I can. Use Move It to fix it if it's all messed up. And right here we have the space for something of a bit of a bigger scope. Level 5 preferable. And this one comes with a nice, prop selection as well. That makes everything a lot easier. So I'm just gonna see if I can squeeze in one more. So it looks like a single unit. And now we just gotta correct some of the color schemes. So we'll just grab this one. Make sure all of these carry that color. And we'll grab this boring looking one. I know the green roofing is a little more unique, stands out a little more. But I want this to be pretty boring. And now for the boats as the final magic trick. I wonder if I can just search for boat. Ah, perfect. Now these were, as I said, by Crypto Gamer on Sully's Discord, so you can go and grab them there. They are localized assets, use at your own risk. The idea is just brilliant. I'm pretty sure it's just, I say just, but it's a brilliant idea. It's a handful of existing props that have been cleverly combined to actually just look like small boats. And I mean, they're not specifically fishing boats, so I could add these to the marina as well. Or maybe even try and venture into the asset editor to see if I can just create anything remotely as interesting. But I think for now they're gonna do their job, and I know this is a bit of a tease, but they are placed as props on ground level, so it's going to require me to just elevate them in just a second with Move It, and then I promise it's all gonna look a lot more interesting. So we're just gonna place a handful here, then we'll grab Move It, and I'm gonna see if I can remember where I placed all these. I think I can. I think that was about it. So let's just Control H to this level, looky, and then we'll just lower these so that we don't see the pillar poking through all that much. At least we'll lower them to about this level, and would you look at that? I mean, the creativity that we've been seeing due to the unfortunate lack of an asset editor still and official support for custom assets, the creativity we're seeing due to that is pretty amazing. And I can zoom in on one of these so that you guys can see that. I think this is like the checkpoint for one of the parking lots even, and then a very clever use of some fences and other stuff. It's just wonderful. And I mean, as we zoom out, it really just completes the look. Very nice indeed. We're not gonna do detailing here. We're going to place a few more buildings, make this whole area look a little more complete. So the aquarium, I actually think I might poach this building here, this EU high density signature building that is a part of the train station currently. I don't even know if it's a perfect fit. I'm gonna try. Let's grab the picker mod and just see how this activity plaza, if it actually oh man, oh really, is it gonna be this easy? I'm just gonna see if I can kind of align it as good as possible. I might not use this angle, but yeah. So it's going to encroach a tiny bit on the roads. I just want to see if it's messing up any of the terraforming. I think as the further I can move it down to this corner here, the better. But I may just have to kind of cheat a bit and nobody's watching. Yoink. Oh, it's got a bit of an annoying issue here as well. So we're gonna try and bring that a bit further back to just actually no. We're gonna cheat again. Just bring this forward a bit. Move It is such a joy as always. And we've got the same thing going on back here. We're just gonna change the road layout ever so slightly so it's a perfect fit. I really like that. Okay. Activity plaza, I mean Fort John aquarium isn't super creative, but it's more creative than activity plaza. I also think we can fit in like maybe an additional signature building out here. What's it called? There's the other commercial one. Is it called Coders Park? I think it might be called Coders Park. I'm not sure I've placed it yet. Or maybe I just don't have access to it. It's an office building actually. It is. Coder Park. Okay, so I have placed it somewhere. That's interesting, but I mean, I guess I can just place it again. The actual Coder Park, and let's see, we've got a bit of parking to be careful about, but I'm just gonna align it as much in the center as I can so that we don't have much in terms of terraforming issues. Oh, that's gonna be hard to avoid, but I think this is good enough. A better bulldozer. I'm gonna get rid of these hedges at the very least. And there might be some things here I want to remove as well. Actually, no, it seems like we managed to just expand the roads so much so that it's actually a proper fit without anything clipping through. The aquarium probably needs some parking. I was thinking of the small parking building here. I have just tested and we can kind of fit it. It's gonna slightly clip into the building, but not too much, and it's not like in an area where, I mean, it almost looks like there's an actual door into the aquarium, which is pretty fortunate. I kind of just want to cover this up now because this is looking a little rough, so I'm hopeful I can grab maybe like maybe a low density office building of some sort that I can then kind of like something like this actually, that I can then stitch together and just kind of cover this up. So if I can just bring, let's see, we're just gonna give this a go, I think. I'm just gonna try and cover this up and make this look a little better. I get this aligned and we'll add one more, I think. Something like this, and then maybe just grabbing this color scheme. That didn't change much, but I mean, I think this works. I think it'd be a shame if we wrapped up without placing at least one modern residential development down here. And we've got two decently sized blocks to work with. This one is kind of narrow and it would sit in between the recently built aquarium and this something that also looks kind of modern and contemporary. So I think we're going to go for this, and then maybe this is going to be a block we're going to conduct a vote on in the future for all you honorable, non-corruptible members of the East Haven, or rather Fort John City Council. Anyways, for this lot here, let's just check our signature building situation as far as residential buildings go. There's a ton of stuff here I haven't unlocked. I'm not too worried about that. We can just grab it through Find It. I do find some of these unlock requirements a little arbitrary. I mean, I would never realistically get to unlock this one because I'd have to fill the entire map with high density buildings. I mean, okay, I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea. So let's see. We do actually have the Polaris suites, and I haven't placed these anywhere in the city. And let's just, I mean, that could work. It's a pretty narrow building, and while it's pretty chunky, the actual height doesn't distract too much from the downtown, I feel. So that's not too bad at all. But I kind of want to make this whole thing a little more interesting. So I think for starters, we're going to get rid of Elizabeth Lane, because that's really not helping with the placement. Obviously, if we didn't have Anarchy on, we wouldn't be able to fit it here at all. But I was thinking maybe we could align it alongside this as pedestrianized areas instead. I'm just gonna try and give this a go. I should actually probably just get it placed first, because then I can kind of see how much trouble we're looking at as far as you know, the terraforming issues we might be looking at. So if I just place it here, it is looking a little rough back here because this is just, it's too narrow, the current pier. But it's also a very narrow road. So if we just grab the new small pedestrianized street and try to align that, then I'd be curious to see how that is going to look. So let's just make sure we have enough space and see if I can get these perfectly aligned. That's as perfect as it's gonna get, I assume. We can move this a little back, and we should be able to also just kind of splice this a little into the building, because it is going to still be significantly wider than the current road. Get this aligned, and then it's all gonna look a little funky before we add the key walls. So that seemed to fix the terraforming issue at least, and if I'm hopeful, it all fixed it up here as well. That is actually pretty good. Now there is a bit of an issue here. I think we should probably just kind of get a connection going with these two lanes. Unless I need dedicated parking here as well. Although it would be kind of rough to have like a surface parking lot right here. So let's just see if I can just kind of squeeze an alley through here a little roughly. Like this. I don't really mind that we're pushing into the lot. I mean, this is all one big exercise in using Anarchy anyways. And I think we need a bit more going on down here. If not a finalized development, then maybe a construction site with a building under construction, just like we've done with this skyscraper in downtown. Oh, and I may also need a bit of input from you guys on what we're gonna do with this corner lot here right by the main station, because if you remember, this used to house this building, but obviously we've now repurposed this signature asset, and I don't mind using it several times over, but not, you know, in walking distance. It's a little too unique looking for that. Anyways, there's a space here, which I think would be fitting for a construction site for another slightly high-rise development. Not too high because it's a small lot size. And I'm kind of tempted to go for this one, this EU residential high 2x4, because it's a pretty good fit. And if I use the prop version, I can kind of lower it into the ground so that it isn't as tall. And if I don't want to lower it, I should probably just grab it from here, because then it's actually going to add people to the city and activity. I think I'm just gonna try and do that. Maybe I can kind of squeeze in the prop version as well, just to make it look a little more interesting or something like that. So if I just align the finalized version right here, and maybe we remove this lane, and I'm gonna see if I can stitch in, kind of stitch in the prop version at a bit of an off angle, just like that. I think that kind of works, and then we'll use move it to grab the prop version, and we're gonna lower that into the ground to create its own unique look. Maybe something like this. And then I need to grab the crane props I've been using up here. So I think it's probably just gonna be easiest using the picker tool. And then let's see, I think realistically it's probably the main tower that isn't completed yet. Right? Something like that. So I just want to make sure that I can kind of squeeze in the crane here. And I know it looks a little odd, and I am so looking forward to the official asset editor release and some fully custom props and assets, because then I'm sure we'll get some really cool construction stuff. But let's just add a crane right here, and let's just see, how did I colorize these? These are just white, I think, but I can copy paste it, which is perfect. Yoink. That sort of works. And then we've got a bunch of scaffolding as well, so I think I'm actually just gonna use find it to find the scaffolding I need, because there are a couple of different versions. And once again, I grabbed these from Sally's Discord. And these are by Jay, as you can so easily see by the name. So I'm just gonna grab some of these, and I don't clearly know what I'm doing. So it's very much just an exercise in making things look sufficiently complex, at least. Oh, and I should probably get rid of these solar panels. I don't expect these to have been added just yet. So I'm just gonna add a few of these, and then the important part is gonna be lowering them so that it looks a little more realistic. Oh, that's the wrong one I got selected there. I'm gonna lower this version as well. And then we've got the big version right here. It's a little finicky selecting them, but it's not too bad. And since we actually have this building placed twice over here, which once again isn't walking distance, although this building looks a little less unique than the aquarium, I figured we try and go for some kind of, you know, a slightly more interesting color scheme, maybe just to make the whole thing stand out. So let's see if we can do like a maybe sort of greenish or a blue rather. Kind of like this one. And then not too heavy. Something like this maybe. And we'll just make sure that is copied to the prop version. I think that looks a little more interesting. To sell this being an active construction site a little better, I'm gonna remove some of the leisure props down here, and I think I used a fence as well over here to just kind of fence this off. Oh yes, I did. Let's see if I can grab it among all the stains I've used. I don't think I can, so we're just gonna find this, but you'll get a proper idea of what they're actually called, these props then, which I guess is pretty good. So for fence, I think we have like an industrial fence of some sort, although these Japanese fences are also really cool. Yoink. And let's see, that seems to work. Of course, I don't really want to cut the people off from walking on this. Yeah, I'm gonna do that no matter what I do, I think. Oh well. Oh well. Doesn't have to be perfect. Something like that. And then let's see, we should have some industrial props that might be easy to access from this prop menu here. And then a few vehicle props just for good measure. So the construction manager parked his truck here. He has to drive a truck, I feel at least. And then I just need something that kind of looks construction-ish-y. Oh my goodness, this one is massive. We'll add a coal truck. I'm actually starting to wonder what I used over here. I didn't actually place any vehicles. I just placed... Okay, I just placed some different stains and decals and a few of these props as well. Cool, that makes it a little easier. We'll jump into decals and we'll find this one especially and just get things looking a little messy around the construction site. Just now noticing a fresh water shortage here in Fort John, not affecting the remainder of the county, and it's actually because the utility situation here in Fort John is fairly isolated to the actual island. We are connected through sewage to the water treatment plant. I think I did that because this one's capacity is pretty high, although we're actually kind of nearing the top end of it. Water availability throughout the county is good though, so I think I'm just gonna run a new set of pipes to connect to the main grid here in Chowder Bay. And we're gonna follow the Route 28 for at least a good while, then we're gonna go down by quite a bit. And I think that piping could just run underneath where the old bridge used to be. And just get it connected up here. Just gonna check that I didn't mess anything up with these pipes. Some terraforming wise, doesn't look like that's the case. Let's see if that didn't work. Come on. Ah, perfect. As all our services are district based, at least most of them here in Fort John, I need to ensure that I am specifically covering the new Old Harbour and Buffer Park neighborhoods. It's less important in Buffer Park, except for at least fire department handling, otherwise the old museum could burn down and we don't want that. And we'll get the police station. I wish there was an easier way of doing this. Is there an easier way of doing this than looking at like an existing district that has full coverage and then just going one by one? I don't even know if there is. It would be pretty cool if you could actually just click on the district and then you had an option here on the local services to kind of click and then select from the nearest services. Maybe there would even be like a distance meter showcasing, okay, there are 2 firehouses nearby, but one of them is like 100 meters nearby, and maybe even at what capacity that service has been worked at for the last couple of months. So let's say there are 2 firehouses near Old Harbour, but I can see that the closest one which is assigned to downtown, is frequently having all the fire engines working at the same time, I might say, okay, I'm going to select a slightly more rural firehouse to cover Old Harbour, because while the distance is higher, the chance of there being an available engine if the harbor starts burning down is higher as well. I'm just thinking out loud here. I think that would be a really cool feature, Paradox. Colossal Order, are you listening? Or maybe there just is an easier way, and in that case, please let me know. So I think I'm gonna wrap up this episode with some light detailing of Old Harbour and Buffer Park before transitioning into the final cinematics. So the ramble from me is gonna stop now, and you'll have a couple of minutes of hopefully nice music, detailing, and cinematics. A quick note on the detailing, we're gonna keep it super light. I'm gonna try and use surfaces and decals mainly here in Old Harbour, some more modern surfaces for some of the redevelopment areas, and some older, you know, concrete, pavement, all that stuff, just to kind of reflect some of these empty lots. Now, for the future of these empty lots, if you have suggestions already, feel free to let me know in the comments, but otherwise, I think we're gonna have some votes in the future. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be some developers out there that are eyeing up these lots here, because the location, I mean, there's still an ongoing bit of industry here, but it's mainly fishing and fish processing. It's not too polluting. Maybe it's even charming to look at from your $1 million apartment. Oh yes, you are so connected to the working class. Anyways, it's gonna be fun figuring out what to build here. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next one.